Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as I talk about how to plant elephant ear bulbs. So let's go. I live in New Hampshire. I garden in USDA Zone 5B. Based on my zip code, my average last frost date is around May 15th. If you bought an elephant ear bulb, or if you overwintered some and you're not sure what to do next, then this video is for you. Elephant ear, also known as Colocasia, is a tropical perennial plant, and it's mostly grown for its large heart-shaped leaves. This plant is known to be hardy in USDA zones 8 through 11. So if you live in any of those zones, very likely this plant is perennial and you can just leave it in the ground and it'll come back for you year after year. However, in colder zones, such as where I live, I have to treat this plant as an annual. But I think that's a waste. I don't want to just buy it year after year. So what I plan to do is dig it up and store it over the winter months. That way I can save money by not having to buy it every year. And then over time, I can actually propagate this plant when it starts sending out little baby elephant ears, also known as pups. This is my cat, Winnie. She's decided to join us for this video. She likes to listen to me. She enjoys taking instruction on these type of videos. It's important to know your average last frost date when it comes to the right time to plant elephant ear bulbs. If you don't know what that date is, check out the link down below. And on that website, just enter in your zip code. It will tell you the date, but also there's a map on there and you'll get a better idea of what your average last frost date is by looking at the map. Another way you can find that information out is just by doing an internet search. Something like, what is my average last frost date? And then just put in your location and you should be able to find it. And then once you know that date, then you'll know when can you plant your bulbs out in your landscape or out in pots. And then based on that, you can then decide if you're going to plant the bulbs directly outside or start them indoors. This year, I'm planting the super mammoth elephant ear. It thrives in full sun to part shade, and it'll do well in either a container or out in a garden border. And this particular elephant ear is going to grow anywhere from 48 to 72 inches in height. If you live in a much warmer climate and a longer growing season, then you should be able to plant your elephant ear bulbs directly in the ground. You just have to wait until there's no danger of frost. You also want to wait until your soil temperature has warmed up to at least 65 degrees Fahrenheit. However, if you want to jumpstart, wake up, or pre-sprout your elephant ear bulbs, you can do that. You can start doing that anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks before your average last frost date. Knowing where to plant your bulbs outside is important as well. In warm climates, it's preferred to plant the elephant ears in part sun. You don't want to scorch the leaves. However, where I live in a cooler region, I can actually get away with planting these in a full sun location. Now, no matter where you plant the bulbs, just make sure that the soil is a well-draining soil. Now let's talk about how to plant your bulbs. If you are going to plant the bulbs directly out in the landscape, you want to dig a hole that's about 3 to 4 inches in depth. Your bulbs might already be sprouting, but in many cases, especially if you buy the bulbs in a store like I did, the bulbs might not be sprouting. So you might be like, okay, which way do I plant these bulbs? Normally, you want to plant the bulbs so that the circles, look very carefully and you'll see them, so that the circles are pointing upwards. Some people say that you might be able to see the roots on your bulb, or you might see little holes on the bulb where the roots were. I can tell you by looking at my bulb, it wasn't that obvious. But if it's obvious to you, if you see those little circles where the roots come out, that's going to be down. That's going to be down near the soil. And by the way, if you're still not quite sure after looking at your bulb and you're not sure where those circles are that I'm talking about, the great thing about planting elephant ear bulbs is they are very forgiving. Get them planted, and as long as you plant them on what you feel is their side, then what will happen is the plant will right itself and the leaves will come up, and then you'll have a beautiful plant. Then you can go ahead, cover your bulbs up completely, give them a drink of water, and then be patient. It's going to take at least 2 to 4 weeks before you see any sort of growth. Elephant ear bulbs like a lot of water. If you don't give them a lot of water once you start seeing growth, you might notice that they start wilting. So make sure as they start growing and getting larger for you that you're giving them plenty of water. And if you have multiple bulbs and you want to plant them out in your landscape, you want to space them out. It's normally somewhere between 1.5 to 3 feet apart. But it's going to vary depending on the variety that you're trying to plant. So just research the variety and it should tell you how far apart they should be spaced. Now I'm going to show you my way of pre-sprouting or waking up this elephant ear bulb. I'm just using pre-moistened potting mix here. You can use whatever potting mix you like. Just make sure that it's well draining. I like to make my own potting mix. It's basically 4 parts of peat moss, or you can use coco coir, to 1 part of vermiculite, 1 part of perlite, and then I sprinkle the top with a powder form of garden lime, and that offsets the pH of the peat moss. If you are going to make your own and you're going to use coco coir, you don't need to use any garden lime. And you want it to be slightly moist. When you squeeze it, you don't want water dripping out of it because if it's too wet, it can rot your bulb. And then when you let go, notice that it holds its form. That's the perfect consistency. You want to pick a pot and you want it to be large enough to fit your bulb. I am picking a pot that is not very large, but it's large enough for the bulb. Again, it's only going to be used to pre-sprout the bulb. And as the bulb wakes up, I can always pot it up if I need to before I bring it outside for the summer. No matter which pot you use, just make sure there are holes in the bottom of it for drainage. We're going to go ahead and we're going to add some pre-moistened potting mix to our pot. The bag that this came in, I'm going to keep this bag actually. You can use it for a number of things, like if you want to pre-sprout ranunculus corms, or if you're going to use some mosquito bits and you want to put the mosquito bits inside of water. So I'm actually going to save this. This is my first year for growing elephant ear, so I am not that familiar with how to grow it. I did a lot of research on it. Some places, again, said to look for the rings, and the rings should be facing up. I'm going to go with the advice that I gave you earlier, which is if you're not sure, plant it on its side. And what I plan to do is I'm going to wait probably about 2 weeks, and then I'm going to dump this all out, and I'm going to see if I see anything sprouting. Once I see anything sprouting, I will then place this bulb in the pot the right way. In other words, if it starts sprouting up on this side, I'm going to take the bulb that's currently on its side, and I'm going to place it like this. And the same is true if the bulb is on its side like this inside the pot, and I dump the pot out and I see it sprouting on this side, then I will write the bulb this way. So be on the lookout for an updated video, and I will let you know the right way to plant your elephant ear bulb. So now that we've placed it in here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to cover it. I want to make sure that it's fully covered, and I'm not going to be adding any additional water at this point since it already is pre-moistened. When it comes to how deep to plant your bulbs to pre-sprout them, you only need them 1 to 2 inches beneath the potting mix. You can place this in a very sunny window, or you can place it under your grow lights. I'm going to place it under my grow lights, which are on 16 hours a day. They come on at 5 a.m., they go off at 9 p.m. As growth appears, I will water it more frequently. I will harden it off as my average last frost date approaches, and then I'll plant it outside when the soil temperature is about 65 degrees Fahrenheit, which for me in New Hampshire should be around early June. During the growing season, which is about spring through fall, the elephant ear bulbs appreciate fertilizer. You want to be fertilizing them about every 2 to 4 weeks with a water-soluble, high-nitrogen fertilizer. And if you have your bulbs in a pot or a container, which is what I'm planning to do, then that fertilizer is going to get leached out every time you water the pot or the container. So just be wary of that and make sure you're giving your plant enough fertilizer, as much as it needs in order for it to thrive. In case you're wondering, why even bother pre-sprouting the bulb? Why not just take it and plant it out in the ground? There are a few reasons. For example, here where I live, where it's pretty cold, I want to maximize my short growing season and I want to really enjoy these plants. So it's to my benefit to wake them up early so that I have a nice sizable plant that I can put out in my landscape. Also, by pre-sprouting or waking up your bulbs, it's a great way to check the viability. In other words, you don't want to plant a bulb that you're not quite sure about if it's good or if it's going to do anything. It's better to pre-sprout it, wait some time, and like I said, it might take 2 or 4 weeks. And if a month or even 2 months have gone by and nothing's happening, take the bulb out of the pot or the container. And if you don't see any growth, it's most likely possible that the bulb is not viable. Are you growing elephant ear in your garden? If so, which variety are you growing? Also, if you've ever overwintered your elephant ear bulbs, let me know what your process is. I'd love to hear from you. I'll be making update videos when the time comes for me to harden off the bulb, to pot it up into a more decorative pot, fertilize it, and then eventually overwinter it. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.